Vlad Dracula Tepes isn't the villain that you think he is. While he technically fits the role of the main antagonist for the first and second season, it doesn't mean he's a bad guy or the villain. Let's take Death Note for example. Light Yagami is in fact the villain of this story, but yet because we follow his story, he is the protagonist. This isn't to say that the battle between antagonist and protagonist is as simple as good versus evil. It is just the main character that we follow and the main character that opposes their ideals. With that being said, while Trevor Belmont is our protagonist who wants to save humanity, Dracula is in direct conflict with that since he wants to eradicate humanity. But we can't say that Dracula is necessarily evil, as this isn't what he originally wanted. So, let's talk about who Vlad Dracula Tepes is. Dracula in his early days was what we would consider as evil. He hated humans, but wouldn't actively pursue them. He simply lashed out at those who would dare to wrong him, leaving them impaled on a pole in order to strike fear into the hearts of anyone who would dare to wrong him in any way. Of course, this method of murder and the character himself being based off of the voivode of Wallachia, Vlad Tepes, otherwise known as Vlad the Impaler during the 1440s. Dracula preferred his quiet life though, living alone in his castle collecting a large amount of scientific knowledge. His world was however changed once he met the human, known as Lisa. Lisa was studying in order to improve her medical research so that she could become a doctor. She approached Dracula, knowing of the scientific knowledge he had stored within his castle. To Dracula's surprise, however, Lisa wasn't afraid of him, and she actively encouraged him to help her change the world. Dracula, finding himself smitten by this brave human woman, would later marry her, and then they would eventually have a son, Adrian, also known as Alucard. Dracula and Lisa would later move to a cottage outside of Targoviste, Wallachia, where Lisa would continue to research medicine. With Lisa's recommendation, Dracula traveled across the world in order to learn more about the people that he had come to hate. This is where Dracula would meet both of the Devil Forge masters, Hector and Isaac. If you are interested in seeing the breakdowns for both of those characters, you should see the link at the top of the screen, but they'll also be in the description. Roughly 20 years later, Dracula and Lisa's happy life would come to a tragic end. Upon returning from his travels, Dracula would learn that Lisa was arrested on false charges of witchcraft and sentenced to death. Dracula, becoming angry at this information, rid himself of thoughts of coming to any understanding with humanity. In a pillar of fire, Dracula disappears, only to reappear at the site of his wife's execution, demanding to know what has happened to Lisa. The bishop proclaiming that Lisa was a witch and Dracula no more than a myth, further enraging Dracula, giving the people of Targoviste 1 year to make peace with their god before he returned to exact his revenge. Our introduction to the Netflix series paints Dracula as our protagonist, and humanity and religion as the antagonist. Dracula wasn't in the wrong, and this did cause a lot of problems with the initial release of the show, as people just saw this as another means to demonize religion. But how could this be demonizing religion when it was once a common occurrence within the Salem witch trials? But I digress. Dracula returns to his castle in order to begin preparations for the army from hell that he would summon within 1 year. Alucard would eventually show up, begging his father not to take the lives of innocent people, but Dracula would retort with, "No one is innocent, as they did nothing to save your mother." Alucard would attack Dracula, but then be quickly defeated. With the help of both Isaac and Hector, Dracula was able to create his army from hell, and 1 year later, as promised, he appeared again in Targoviste. But did Dracula see the humans praying to their god and repenting for their actions? No. Dracula witnessed these humans who took his wife's life, celebrating her death, and still insulting Dracula by calling him nothing more than a myth. As promised, Dracula unleashed his army on Targoviste, leaving no survivors and allowing the horde to spread to the rest of Wallachia. With the war ongoing, and Dracula losing more and more of his hell army while attacking the people of Gresset, he calls on the help of his vampire generals. While initially a solid plan, the announcement of the War Council being led by 2 humans, Isaac and Hector, throws the council into disarray. And then Carmilla arrives. If you'd like to know more about the femme fatale Carmilla, make sure to check out her video as well, which will also be in the description. Upon arriving, Carmilla asks one question that enrages Dracula. Why hadn't he turned Lisa into a vampire? Unknown to Dracula, however, Carmilla wasn't there to help him, but to take his place as the most powerful vampire. With Carmilla's arrival, several vampires begin to question Dracula, including Godbrand. Godbrand being worried that if all of humanity is eradicated, they will have nothing to feed on, and he questions Dracula about this, enraging Dracula further. But Dracula doesn't care. He no longer cares about his life, or the lives of vampires or humans. He simply wants it all to end. This is a suicide mission for Dracula. He wants to enact his revenge and doesn't care about what comes after. With Carmilla's betrayal enacted, his castle is stormed in the port city of Brela, where Dracula is confronted by Trevor, Sifa, and Alucard. Isaac warns Dracula and tells him that he will protect him. Dracula, moved by Isaac's loyalty, decides to instead protect him and send him through his mirror into the desert. And here we see the clashing ideas between Dracula and Alucard. Alucard claims that the war is over in the name of his mother, but Dracula retorts by saying the war persists in her name. Dracula, enraged by Lisa's death, can only think of revenge, while Alucard is only thinking of what his mother would want. A long battle between the three begin, with it eventually leading into a fight between Alucard and Dracula in Alucard's childhood room. Seeing the room, Dracula begins to regain his senses, seeing the room that he and Lisa built for their child. Memories begin to flood back in, realizing that he's killing his own son, the greatest gift that his wife ever left for him. Dracula dies with a stake in his heart, planted there by his own son. Dracula leans in for what looks like a final hug for his son, but before being able to embrace him, he's decapitated by Trevor. The only thing left behind after Sifa burning Dracula's body is his wedding ring. Dracula died a broken man, only wishing he could have done more to save his wife, knowing that he had died when Lisa did. And that so far is the end of Dracula's story. Later on, there is, however, an attempt to revive him. When the portal to the underworld is open, we are able to see that in hell, Dracula has been reunited with Lisa. Dracula's story is one of pain and suffering. It's a revenge story. It's, as Alucard stated, history's longest suicide note. But that's all for this character analysis on Dracula. One of the most dangerous villains in histories, but also one of the most justified, and one of the villains that experienced the most pain. If you would like to see more Castlevania related content, please let me know in the comment section below. If you want any specific character like Sifa, Alucard himself, also let me know in the comment section, and I'll make sure to get working on those right away. I know that it's taken me quite a while to get back in the groove of making these videos. I just got done moving. Well, still not necessarily fully done, still working on that, but I at least have my things set up to, make and put out videos. But just let me know what you'd like to see. My main goal is to put out a lot of Castlevania related content on this channel. However, I created this channel so that I could talk about what I enjoy. And so I will still be making videos on other anime, other manga, based on how I feel in regards to that, but the primary focus here is Castlevania. When the Chainsaw Man anime comes out, I'll probably take a shift to focusing on that a little bit more. Unless, of course, that comes out around the same time as Season 4. Who knows? It still hasn't given us an official release date for Chainsaw Man's anime, but who knows? We may be seeing something very soon. At least we know that Season 4 of Castlevania should be here by June, July, So we're getting pretty close to that threshold there. We should be seeing season 4 really soon, which I'm extremely excited for. On that note though, you know, if you like the content, if you like Castlevania, if you like anime, feel free to subscribe, like the video, and I'll see you later.